Hello everyone. Today we're going to walk through Lesson 4, which is a discussion on demand to build job orders. The demand to build process allows us to plan for the demand. It's based on the concept of supply and demand. You may have heard about supply and demand. Supply and demand simply says if there is a demand from the consumers, then the producers should be able to provide the supply. And so, for example, we're getting ready to celebrate Halloween. There's going to be a demand for candy. The producers of candy want to make sure that they are able to meet the demand. But at the same time, they don't want to provide too much product. They also do not want to run out of product. And it's a very fine line between how much is too much, how much is too little. And so demand to build gives us a mechanism in CSI for trying to anticipate based on forecasting and some of the analytics that we already have collected to see if we can pinpoint the number of products we will need to provide in order to meet the demand. At the same time, we need inventory to solidify our products. We need resources to solidify those products. We also need manpower and all kinds of warehouse space, facilities, etc. So demand to build takes into account all of the things that are necessary, all of the pieces of the puzzle that will allow us to put together a product and meet the demand. After this lesson, you'll understand the bill of materials and how to create a job order. We will actually create a job order and we'll generate some paperwork and receipts. Okay, so a bill of material is like a recipe. If you were baking a cake, for example, there is a certain amount of items that you need to include in your cake. The recipe calls for maybe flour and sugar and maybe some eggs, butter, things like that. And so a bill of materials simply is a list of items that are needed to build a finished product. Raw materials, usually, that are needed to finish a product. Think of something like an airplane, a 747. There was a tremendous list of items, a tremendous bill of materials that was necessary. Then you could have the basic airplane. You might have a customized airplane. So you have the standard bill of materials, and then you'll probably have some additional items due to the customization requirements that have been requested by the customer. So this is an example of a bill of materials. It includes a list of raw materials, a list of the things that we need, the recipe, if you will, a list of materials. And it also has the operations, the steps that are going to be needed to assemble the finished product. So here's an example. We have the routing, which is the steps here. The routing is going to include, in this case, there are 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. The welding, the painting, the assembly, inspection, in this case for a bicycle. The actual bicycle, the bill of materials. You want a frame, aluminum frame, I guess, a sprocket, and some blue paint. So you take the aluminum frame and you assemble it, the sprockets, and you paint it, and it becomes a finished product. It could also be known as a bill of manufacture. The bill of manufacture and the bill of materials are basically the same thing. So this bill of materials and this bill of manufacture are equivalent. They are a little different in format, but you still have the finished product, which is the 5910 bicycle frame. You have the welding, which is item step 10 rather, of the aluminum frame. You have the blue paint to paint the frame. To assemble the frame, you need the sprockets, and then you need an inspection. So this bill of manufacture, bill of materials, one and the same. And these are typically needed in manufacturing environments so that you have a list of items and you have a list of steps that must be performed in order to assemble those items. There's 5 types of bill of materials. The standard or the current bill of materials is the master template. So you create a master template, and then you can create a job from the bill of materials, production schedule from the current template, estimating from the current template, or the costing from the current template. So you use the template and you can copy to and from that template. So when you create the step of operations, the routing, the set of operations, the steps, and the actual items, then you have to define the items, the operations, before you can add the materials. The operations first and then the materials. So in today's lesson, we're going to create a job order, and then we're going to process that job order. Job order basically allows us to order the items that are needed in order to develop a final finished product. You can create job orders through the several different ways. You can use the MRP, which is the Manufacturing Resource Planning, or Advanced Planning System, using something called the Material Planner Workbench. You can firm up your orders, your plans for orders, if you will. Make sure that you don't, certain items don't run below the safety stock. You don't want to run out of critical components and things that you're going to need. You never want to run out of certain things, and so you make sure that those items are always in stock. Then you can convert an estimate to an actual job, or you can directly create a new job order, which is what we're going to do. You can also copy a routing bill of materials to a blank job ID. Several different ways to create a job order, and we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to create one manually, and once we create a bill of materials, or once we actually create the job, the bill of materials is already there for us. Once we create the job, the bill of materials will be copied to the job, changing the status from firm to released, and you'll actually do that in our exercise. We'll change the current status from firm to released, which allows then the process to move forward. So that brings us to exercise 4.1. And exercise 4.1 can be found, you find the page, page 79 in your workbook if you are following along. So I'm going to go over to Mingle and log on. There are certain roles that are listed on page 79. Those include the account manager, who basically does inside sales for a company, internal to a company, I guess. There's a marketing coordinator, a marketing manager, a supply chain planner, and sales support. Those are the different roles that can be assigned in CSI with the certain permissions that are associated with those roles that typically are involved with doing demand to build and job orders like we're getting ready to do right now. Okay, so the first step on page 79, at the bottom of page 79, is to open the job orders form. So we just go to our drop-down list and we type in job orders. This is going to load the form, which will allow us to create a new job order. The first thing we do, as usual, is filter. The filter then, of course, will provide a list of all the jobs that have been previously created. There are hundreds of them in the CSI database. We're going to create a new one right now. So once you filter, then you can click the New button to bring up a blank form. When you bring up the blank form, on page 80, step number 3 says to, well, first let's go to step 2, which tells you to enter in the job order form the letter J, your 3-digit number. I'm going to use 323, an underscore, and a question mark. Remember, you're going to use your own 3-digit number here. And as we recall from previous exercises, the question mark is a placeholder which will allow the system to generate an actual number for us. A system-generated number will be added. Okay, then we move on to step 3 on page 80, which tells us to find our item. My item is going to be item 323C. The item is not found in the drop-down list, so we type it in. We do the wildcard search as we have in the past. So item underscore 3 asterisk, the asterisk being the wildcard, which says give me all items that start in the 300s. Okay, so here's our list of items. I'm going to scroll down to 323. You're going to find your item, which should be listed here. Mine is item 323. Your item is going to be item C, which is a finished unit. And actually, item C is comprised of items A and B, the fitness tracker and the battery. That item A is the fitness tracker itself. Item B is the batteries. Item C is a finished unit, which includes the unit and the batteries. Okay. The start date is today's date. The end date will populate automatically, and it can stay as the same as the start date. We want to use one item released for this exercise. So this default here can be kept as it is. Change the status from firm to released. Notice that you can have released, stopped, complete, and history. We want released, so change that status. When you save this, you will see a message that says the BOM will be copied. So we click Save. Current copy of the current BOM will be performed. That's what you want. Click OK. You will notice that as soon as this item is saved, the job number will have an actual 3-digit number associated with it. All right, so our job number is, in my case, J323 underscore 00001. Yours should be the same, with the exception of the three-digit number. It will be your three-digit number and your item. All right, well, that's fairly straightforward and fairly simple. That takes us to step number 4, or exercise 4.2, which is on page 84. In this exercise, we're going to go to the ellipsis, the 3 dots here in the corner, which brings up a separate menu of items that you can do associated with this job. What we're going to do is we're going to create a job packet. So we click on the job packet button, and that will bring up another form. That will bring up the job packet form. So your starting and ending job number should automatically be included here. If it's not, you can just simply type it in. It should be here. Though if you load it through the job order form, it should be there. Then we're going to click print. This takes a minute. Sometimes it will time out. If it times out, simply log out and then log back in. And at that point, it should load the form for you. While we're waiting for the form to load, I can tell you that the next thing we'll do is a job materials transaction, which will allow us to post the job, and that posting then will allow for the payment through accounts payable, and it will write all of these transactions to the database, place orders for the inventory, and make sure that it has been scheduled, that the job has been scheduled in the system. Materials can then be identified and inventory can be replenished, and that way you don't run the risk of running out of inventory. Okay, so it looks like the job material pick list report is actually going to be generated. This report will show us the job number, the items. Here is our bill of materials. It shows item A, item B, the quantity available. We have two. I have 1,020. Your number may be different than mine based on your activity and the database. One fitness tracker is going to be picked from the warehouse, and the batteries, the same thing. One battery for the unit will be picked from the warehouse, and it shows basically the operation, as we mentioned earlier, the work center, description of the components, start date, end date, and so on. This will be used by the warehouse primarily to pull items as they are arriving into the warehouse. These items then can be pulled and associated with a particular job. All right, so you will upload this job to your create a new folder, upload it to your computer, and we're going to call this form Job Material Pick List and your last name. This form you will upload for exercise 4.1. All right, so then that takes us to exercise 4.3. Actually, this will be exercise 4.2. Excuse me. So, exercise 4.3, you'll see a message that says the job has been submitted, which is what we want. You can close the job packet form. Leave the job order open. Next, we're going to go to material transactions, which is here. Notice that there are several things that can be completed with the job order. The material transactions will show you transaction number, a list of activities, you'll also probably need to open the job materials transactions form. There will be some additional items added to this list. Find your job, if you can, from the drop down. There's mine. There are 2 line items in your list. Select the first item. This is step number 3 on page 86. The quantity should be 1, which it is. The quantity is based on the number we set up in our original job. And then you're going to also select the second line item, which is step number 4 on page 87. When you have selected both items, then you click the Process button. This will give you a message saying that the posting was successful. That's what you want to see. We click OK. Now, if you open the job materials form, which is step number 7 on page 87, going to select your job from the drop down. Then you're going to filter. I'm going to go to this shows you the type of job it is, the items, the operation, the assembly, and so on. Go to the Accumulated Values tab, which is here. It will show you the cost, the quantity, and so on. You can then close the job materials and the job material transaction form. And that takes us to exercise 4.4, which is simply posting the job transaction. So here we open the unposted job transaction form. unposted job transaction form. Okay, this takes us to page 87. Select your job from the drop-down list. And then filter. Make sure the transaction type is run. Going to select an employee from the list. These are employees who are already pre-configured, that are basically employees that have the ability to handle job transaction. I'm going to select David Daniels. I actually know a person named David Daniels. It will tell you his pay rate, his the cost of his job cost rate, the pay type, his shift, which could be first, second, or third shift, or weekends. Job type, or pay type rather, can be regular, overtime, or double time, so on. These are the basic things that would be included in an employee database. All right, under complete, we want 1, total hours, we want 0.5, okay, 0.5, we want to check this operation complete check box. We also want the close job checkbox. Once you click the Post Job Transactions button in the Unposted Job Transaction form, you will make sure it has your starting and ending job number. If it doesn't, then you will simply type it in and click the Process button. I've already processed mine. When you process it, it will give you a message that says Post Complete. When you go back to job orders, the status should have changed from released to complete, or from firm to complete. Right here, it should be complete. You might have to hit refresh in order for it to show complete. Once it is complete, now we can go back to our Material Transactions button, which I showed you earlier. We only had one transaction at the time. Now we have 4 additional transactions. Here you're going to take a screenshot of your jobs, of your transactions rather, for your job. You're going to see your reference number here. You're going to take a screenshot of this screen and you will upload this to Blackboard for exercise 4.4, and that will conclude lesson 4. Please let me know if you have any questions.